Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It's the morning, right? It is 11 o'clock, so the public that is watching, just give us a second. It is really critical. We have quorum at this meeting today. And so we're going to wait to get started until we do have quorum, which is 7 people. So we're at 4 now. I'm getting some messages about people are parking. So the moment we do get quorum, we'll get started. So thank you all for joining us today.
Someone, I have to leave a little early.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
my kid
All
to
right.
The doctor.
Good afternoon, everybody. I need if you can call the roll for us as members join, we'll just announce their entrance.
Sure. John Thomas? Dr. Avegno? Here. Lieutenant Anthony Monaco?
Here.
Herman Franklin?
Here.
Robin Birchfield? Tyrell Morris?
Present.
Daniel Metz? Barksdale Hortenstein?
Present.
Deidre Hayes? Shade Dumas? Alexa Peterson-Berg? Dalton Sapwa? And Dr. Samuel Odom.
So for the record, I did advise council about Lexi's resignation. So
Okay.
does that change our quorum requirements? No?
No.
Okay. Tried. Okay. So when we get quorum, we'll come back to the minutes. We have in our last meeting talked about recommendations. We read the first 5 into the record. We have expanded that to 9. We've published online with the agenda, the recommendations. I am going to read them into the record though, and then we'll open it up for discussion. First recommendation, support the Cantrell administration's use of ARP funds for the deployment of the Mobile Crisis Response Program managed by RHD and ensure the continued funding through the FY23 budget. Recommendation 2, as a part of the contract between the City of New Orleans and RHD, require RHD to create a civilian-only response model to handle 911 calls related to behavioral health needs. Recommendation 3, pass ordinance requiring Metropolitan Human Services District to give quarterly presentations and report to the New Orleans City Council Quality of Life Committee on their initiatives and caseload. Recommendation 4, as a part of the contract between the City of New Orleans and RHD, require RHD to provide a quarterly report and presentation to the Quality of Life Committee of the New Orleans City Council on their progress, workload, and initiatives. Section A, to assess progress, workload, and initiatives, and mechanisms should be developed to assess whether there is a difference between services provided as they are enumerated in writing in the actual provisions of the services in New Orleans. Roman numeral 1, residents who are likely to rely on RHD services should be included in the initial development of performance audit plans, and when significant policy changes require updated audit plans. Roman numeral 2, performance audit plans shall be based on the requirements of the program policy and contract. Roman numeral 3, RHD will create a performance audit plan in partnership with the Health Department's Behavioral Health Council members or a similar stakeholder group. Roman numeral 4, before the audit plan is complete, the contractor or designee will share policy requirements or modifications with residents who rely on the services under review. Residents' input will be used to complete the performance audit plans, will be reviewed by the Behavioral Health Council or a similar group, and will be approved by the City Council. Roman numeral 5, ultimately, RHD will have to develop a mechanism to gather feedback that is consistent with the best practices for receiving input and feedback from residents who rely on their services and adopt the services as needed. Recommendation 5, supervisors at RHD are to complete audits and present findings to the New Orleans City Council. Item A, supervisors will be provided an audit checklist and to perform the audit either by an in-person review of services rendered and or through a review of caseloads, policies, and other print or digital materials. Recommendation 6, fund an outreach marketing campaign around the use of 988 in fiscal year 23 budget. Recommendation 7, create grant programs that allow nonprofits in the community to fill the gap in long-term mental health services where there are no state services currently available. Recommendation 8, there will be an annual review of findings with City Council and community to update policies annually. Recommendation 9, program implementation data included in the audit will be affirmatively shared with the public with assistance from the New Orleans City Council's data analysts. Those are all 9 recommendations. I want to acknowledge the arrival of our co-chair. Is that just a good enough acknowledgement? Okay. Still doesn't give us a quorum. We need one more. But we can move forward with that. I'll open it up for you. Have any opening comments? We open the floor for discussion? No? Okay. For discussion, I just have one point I want to make for the group that this civilian only response model does give me some concern. I do understand that the initial deployment of RHD is an alternative to law enforcement, but I do believe that the overall end goal is that we also have a model for co-response. Because right now we have either in this particular model, civilian response or law enforcement response. There are many instances where the situation does require the presence of law enforcement, an example being barricaded subjects, suicidal subjects, where the presence of law enforcement to protect the individual, the responders, and the general public is necessary. But the presence of a licensed clinician on the scene to inform law enforcement's tactical decision-making, I think ultimately is the best case scenario. So my recommendation is that we do not restrict the overall goal to just be civilian only.
Well, I would say that this does not necessarily preclude that. I would say that the model that RHD is developing for their program internally is for them to respond with civilians. However, what we are building with them is that perhaps they're going to get to the scene and there is a weapon. There is something dangerous. Having the ability to immediately call for police backup will be written in there. And the same thing like what you were talking, Tyrell, obviously, if somebody's barricaded themselves, you're going to send out SWAT, but they might want to call alternative dispatch to also be on the scene. So I think when people say co-responder, they think, well, it's going to be a police officer riding in the car with a non-police officer. And I think that's not the co-response model, that the ideal will be for the non-law enforcement response inappropriate, but with the flexibility to be able to call back up either way. And so I don't know if this language necessarily excludes that. Or if you want to say a civilian only response approach, and then that leaves some flexibility to build out the processes so that no one,
Yeah, and that settles my concerns. I just don't want to preclude us in on writing that we can't in the future bring the two together.
I would say too, just a comment on number one, the Cantrell administration this year, and I think next year, they are using municipal funds. So I don't want to restrict it to ARP funds. Obviously, everybody wants to use ARP funds for all the things, but we've already made the commitment to use municipal funds. So I think if we could just say administration of funds. I will say we have some good news to report this morning. My team, Travers in particular, applied for a DOJ supplemental grant that's going to primarily go to building out the electronic records to interface with your system and to have really robust communications. And we found out last night that we were awarded that. So that's an additional almost $500,000 over 3 years. So
Congratulations.
exciting. So again, we're leveraging every method of funding. I think it is important to say this should be funded by citizens because it's going to directly benefit citizens.
Absolutely. Now, I think that the impetus of putting FY23 in here particularly is because the budget book hasn't been published yet, and we didn't know if it was in there or not.
Well, I was going to say that not relying on a temporary funding mechanism is really important for a program that we want to see grow and maintain itself over the years to come and develop, as it shows its successes.
Dr. Avegno, do you know if we have enough money allocated for the city budget for the startup costs and any type of recruitment and onboarding to ensure that this is fully staffed?
So far, it appears we do. We're now that the contract is officially signed, hooray. We are trying to use as much of the funding remaining in this year for those startups. We also, I should add, were awarded in 23 a $350,000 from federal appropriations through Senator Cassidy's office, and that's one time. So that is also in my mind going to go towards those buying the vehicles and doing the onboarding and all that. So we won't have to worry about, that in our regular yearly budget. But I have not heard from RHD that they think that there's been a change and they're not going to be able to meet the budget. So
Thank you for all of your hard work on this.
it's my
For
team.
spearheading all of the numbers, all of the things that we really need to make this happen. So we have these recommendations. I think the only thing I wonder about is how do we know when lead is going out versus the civilian only crisis response team? Because we have a
Agreed.
full responder
Yeah.
model. How do we know when we are just sending clinicians and peer support specialists as opposed to law enforcement?
Yeah, great question. Alternative dispatch is going to run through the 911 system. Lead, as you likely know, but others might not, is not an emergent response. It is, Lieutenant Monaco seeing the same guy on the street for low-level offenses that he recognizes has severe mental health issues. And it is Lieutenant Monaco reaching out to the lead team, whether that's during the day or in the evening or the next day, saying, hey, go see Jerry. Jerry's always on this corner. Lead also does, other forms of referral, but it won't be through the 911 system. And we are also hoping for a lead expansion as well, separate and apart from this in the budget, but just two different pathways. I will say, it may be that alternative dispatch gets called on an acute issue that turns out to be a lead client. So having some sort of institutional knowledge in the health department to be able to say, oh yeah, that's a lead client. Let's make sure we get him connected with this, that, and the other. We'll work to build that in.
Thank you, Dr. Begnaud. Anyone else? Well, before we move to public comment, I did want to take a moment to publicly acknowledge the many, many people that aided the commission, this task force in its work, to include our partners at the Vera Institute under the leadership of Will Snowden and his team there. Thank you very much for the support and guidance you have given this task force. To the various city departments that have come to provide information, serve as members on this team, but also our external agencies, Barksdale and your shop over there, your insight has been incredible to get us to this point. I'm happy to share with the group in the last time we met earlier in the month that the contract with RHD was still in routing. And my understanding is that it has been signed and executed.
By everybody that needs to sign.
Here we go. So we are now under contract, as we say, with the terms have been negotiated. And it's a very real thing. And so I look forward to celebrating the fruits or the benefits of that contract. And I just have, again, my hats off to Dr. Begnaud and your team for just seeing that through.
Big team.
Huge team, but also we're changing the world here.
Hope so.
Yeah. And definitely our people on the ground will get services that we know that they need. And so it really is a joyous day. And I think the impetus is behind why this task force was created in the first place. And it's happy to see that we can check something out the box before this task force is sunset tonight at midnight. So with that, I guess I'll ask the question, do we have any public comment? There's no one in chambers. In a second, we'll see if we have any comment online. Any comments? Just 1 second. Any, do we have any online public comments?
Yeah, we do. I'm sorry, I don't have it quite ready.
Okay.
Just waiting for it to come up. We have 8 online comments.
Okay.
First comment is from Bob Morell. They're kind of broken up, but they're all essentially about the recommendations. Please vote yes on these recommendations. Thank you for your continued work towards unarmed assistance with crisis events. Next comment is from Megan Burns. I support the civilian-only response model for non-emergency or mental health situations. Mental health professionals, bound by their ethical codes, are uniquely qualified to respond and treat behavioral issues in specific areas that police are often not trained, such as trauma-informed crisis intervention. I would look not only to nonprofits to support this measure, but also any LPCs practicing in private practice, as well as pro bono acts as part of the LCA ethical code as well. All mental health practitioners should be giving back to the community in some form outside of private practice. Next comment is from Bonnie Porter. She says this justice system is not built to solve mental health problems. Our community is in a crisis, and it's time that we evolve and respond with compassion, not punishment, for those who need help. Next comment is from Marvin Arnold. I'm glad to know people are working on solutions that are meant to help people by addressing root issues. Thank you for your work. Next comment is from Zoe Johnson. I'm concerned about the narrow scope of the recommendations. While I believe that the checks and balances on the contract with RHD are important, I think we need significantly more publicly funded beds for both mental health crisis facilities and substance treatment facilities, two very closely related issues that often need concurrent care. Our current facilities in Orleans Parish have long wait lists and are often under-resourced and sometimes provide only short-term care. While we need long-term care facilities with wraparound services, we also need more short-term crisis centers to ensure that people in crisis have a place to be taken that is not jail. The next comment is from Robert Demaray Sullivan. Police are not trained to deal with mentally and emotionally disturbed people. They are taught that altercations must be viewed as possible crimes. Enlistment of mental health professionals is needed to avoid future tragedies. This next comment is from Will Harrell, representing Voice of the Experienced. He indicates he is a paid representative. His comment is the suffering of people with mental health challenges in the city of New Orleans has been exacerbated by years of a pandemic and a series of natural disasters and a lack of affordable housing. Chronic underfunding of mental health services has turned our jail into a default mental health facility. Jail is no place to properly address mental health needs, especially when a person is in crisis. Further, violent crime is a real concern in the city. Police resources should be focused on that. Finally, staffing at the Orleans Parish Jail is nearly half what it should be. We should explore any viable alternative to placing people there. We support fully funding and transparency with respect to alternatives to arrest of people in mental health distress. We urge the committee to move the task force recommendations forward to the full City Council. And the last comment is from Alfred Marshall. Alfred says, I'm for this recommendation.
Thank you for those public comments, and thank you to everyone who submitted comments. I just Also want to thank the community because the community has been involved in every step of this process. We've had meetings where folks have shown up. We've had meetings where folks have left public comments online. So I just want to thank the community for that. And also there was something in the comments about the need for more psychiatric beds. That's true. And I think the health department is doing great work right now on some type of crisis center. So this is just one part of the puzzle that we're trying to solve, but we're going to need continued community support to get to a New Orleans that cares for its citizens instead of locking its citizens up for psychiatric disorders. So thank you all for being involved in the process, and we look forward to what's next, Dr. Avegno.
Great. With that,
I just wanted to echo what Sade was saying, and as a public defender, I see the real impact of this every day with people who have severe mental illness and cognitive impairments, and the result of them being incarcerated because of a lack of institutional funding for facilities and for beds. And I share the concerns of Zoe Johnson and Will Harrell, and I hope to work on those programs going forward. I hope that the city council will put together a task force or appropriate funds or do whatever is necessary to move the ball forward so we can continue to make these changes. While that's outside of the scope of this task force, I hope that that work continues. I hope to be a part of it with Dr. Vegno, with Tyrell, with Sade, with the NOPD, with everybody. So let's just keep hoping that we can push that ball forward.
great. And I'm just going to be a little informal here. Can I call for informal votes?
Yeah, I was going to go ahead and say, just go ahead and vote. You do have a reduced membership. However, I believe 7 is still required, but go ahead and do your a vote as is.
Okay, I'm going to do the minutes too, just to,
Absolutely.
So if I can get a motion to accept the minutes from the May 23rd and then September 2nd meeting.
So moved.
Me, I hit the button. It's us. There we go. All right. Now we vote. All right. Now, I'll call for a motion to formally accept the recommendations with the modifications around spelling, the ones we've identified, but all the other textual language remain the same. I see a motion by Sade, second by Barksdale. I'll vote your machine. Great. And again, this has been a great experience for me personally and professionally. I want to thank the council and this committee for allowing myself to serve as the co-chair. And I look forward to continuing this great work with everybody here.
Thank you all. It's been great to serve on this with you.
Hey, Tyrell, I just wanted to say for the public that vote to formally accept was passed with the present members 6-0, as was the approval of the minutes.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'll take a motion to adjourn. Adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
We're out. Thank y'all.
Good job.